So this is a superhero show that features stop motion, claymation, 8-bit animation, 2D, 3D, CGI. It's all on Netflix, called Guardians of Justice. But is it good? Let's talk about it. What is up, Netflix fans? Welcome back to my channel. The Guardians of Justice is now on the platform for you all to binge. Shorter episodes and honestly, not too difficult of a binge. But is this show worth a watch? We're going to talk about it today, and I need you guys in the comments down below. What is this? After keeping the Earth at peace for 40 years, alien superhero Marvelous Man leaves a mission up to both his bitter, violent Lieutenant Nighthawk and idealistic The Speed to stop nuclear war. And as always, just in case families are watching, this show is rated Tvma for substances, language, violence, gore, suicide, and smoking. So my one recommendation is to not watch this with your kids. It's definitely not a family show. But again, the question's going to be asked, what is this show? What is it intended to be? Well, we look at the main producer here, the main writer, that is Adi Shankar, who we know from projects like Castlevania, where he was an executive producer, working on something like Judge Dredd, and was an executive producer of the movie Dredd. So nice projects in the past, and I've actually seen him before doing interviews on like Collider, and he was on Collider Movie Talk kind of back in the day. And then I see his name attached to this, the Guardians of Justice, and not knowing much about this show, and really not even really knowing it was supposed to come out today. That wasn't conveyed to me, so I saw it on the platform and said, oh boy, I gotta binge this, I've got to review it. And I see the poster, and I immediately think, Justice League. I think that's what everyone's going to think about. And as the series starts, you could make the Justice League comparisons. The Boys, Watchmen, any of these teams with those team dynamics, especially when you start to factor in the political nature of what's going on in this show. The fact that the President of the United States is so aggressive. Everyone's aggressive in the show. Everything is over the top. But you have these heroes that are very reminiscent of heroes we've seen before, such as Marvelous Man, a.k.a. Superman, Nighthawk, a.k.a. this world's version of Batman. But what if Batman made some very different decisions? And what if Marvelous Man wasn't always there to help everyone out? I won't say what happens, but there is something that happens with Marvelous Man at the beginning of the show that kind of shocked me, and as we progress through the series, we uncover sort of a mystery of sorts with that entire situation. Why did he make the decision that he made? Okay, those are kind of the serious parts of this show, because it does tend to get serious every now and then. It's also very clearly a satirical series. It's playing on all of the cliches and the tropes and all of the things we've been seeing in superhero shows and movies over the last 10 to 15 years. And if you don't approach it with that mentality, I have a strong feeling a lot of people are going to watch that first episode and say, I hate this, especially if you think it's supposed to be serious, because I will be honest, I watched the first episode and I knew it was trying to play on those genres. But even then, I'm like, this is just, it's a lot to soak in. Love it or hate it, whatever side of the fence you fall on, it is so much. Not only the story, not only the very familiar characters that are reminiscent of things we've seen in the past, but the style of the show. Is it style over substance? I think that's the big question. But there's not only one style. There are many styles at play here. A lot of 2D animation, plenty of 3D mixed with CGI, stop motion creatures on the shoulder of superheroes, 8-bit animation. Any animation style you can think of is weaved in and out of the show. But not only is it weaved in and out, we are constantly going back and forth. And that, for me, is a lot. When you have a variation of art styles changing almost every 10 to 15 seconds, that can become jarring for an audience, especially if you're not prepared for something like that. Now, I do appreciate the artistic nature of what this is going for, right? Including and implementing all of these styles is a gutsy choice. And I mean really gutsy. Does it pull it off? I'm still, even after watching the show, I'm not entirely sure. I respect it. It was a bit much for me at times. You're doing a lot of different things here. And the show also embraces this crazy tone, this satirical play on other stories we've seen before, and brings in someone like a Dallas Page, a.k.a. Nighthawk, or older version of Nighthawk in this series. And man, he is going for every line of dialogue. He is going for it. You can tell he has a wrestling background. This show kind of feels like it lives in the world of wrestling. Everything is over the top. Every line of dialogue, when it's not being shouted at us, it's being displayed in a way that really takes it to another level. And that's why I see this as one of the more divisive shows we've seen in quite some time, because Are you going to embrace that? Or are you going to just sit back and go, why am I 3 episodes in? Turn it off. Okay. I also like seeing Derek Myers in there for all of you Swamp Thing fans. Denise Richards, Hal Ozen, Sharni Vinson plays the Speed, who is an integral character in this season. Andy Milonakis, that was, it was a nice surprise. It's so overboard. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me, of course, of your Watchmen's and your Justice Leagues, just from the poster you can put that together. This also reminds me of Jupiter's Legacy, both the characters and the fact that at times you can tell, and I'm not entirely sure even what the budget was on this show, but certain things in the background and props and elements like that, I know they're meant to look cheesy and maybe not as good as they should have. But even knowing that, it's kind of just like, I'm not entirely sure if the cheap look is the way to do it. It feels intentional, but I'm not entirely sure. And then my other big criticism with this is some of the performances. Some of the acting here just doesn't work. I understand certain characters have to be over the top. Certain characters have to play it in a way that feels, you know, the satirical, which is what they're going for here. And they're trying to play on superhero things. But even then, I think certain people are miscast. Others just take it overboard. And I do wish the acting, if the performances were better, maybe it would have helped in its entirety. The story itself is interesting. Even with a play on all of these things, they still put a lot of effort into bringing us this kind of, you know, fascinating superhero world where heroes are turning and other heroes are trying to figure out which direction they should go in. That's why we embrace a show like The Boys. But this show is not that. This show is attempting to do something even further than that. And I'm still, even after watching and processing, not entirely sure if it hit that mark. What this show does do well, it's obviously playing on that superhero trope, but if you look deeper than that, the toll of being a superhero, that's really looked at in a way that I haven't seen done, like it is done in this series before. I can appreciate that as someone who enjoys this crazy, rowdy, entertaining content to a degree, but needs something just a bit more to sink their teeth into. I like the fact that that was in a series like this. Again, I mentioned the political propaganda that's showcased in this series, the what-ifs of everything, not the Marvel show. What if, but what if this happened to Superman? What if Batman, you know, turned in the way that he did? How would other superheroes respond? What would be going on within the underworld of this city? And just the way that each character handles that. Again, didn't love every performance in this show, but taking a look at how the characters will handle a situation like this is super cool. So amidst and even beneath the style of what this series is doing, and it's a lot of style, some of it beautiful. I mean, especially the animated sequences. I absolutely love that. I just love the artistic take on things like this. But beneath that, there are some interesting characters and almost character studies going on in this show, which I do appreciate. Again, I'm not entirely sure if it all came together because there's just, you know, the production value of some of it doesn't live up to the production value of other moments. So in that way, it's just kind of clashing with each other. You know what it reminds me of? In a way, I think Kung Fury is better, but Kung Fury from a couple of years ago, just really retro, you know, the graphics, over the top, taking a look at a very specific genre. That's what this show is, just more of it. So in that way, you know, looking at it as that type of crazy stylistic show, it does work. With a show like this one that's going to inevitably divide so many people, it's trying to do so much, but at the same time, it's not necessarily a series that comes together and works for me personally. And that's okay. Guardians of Justice may occasionally come across as style over substance, but there are more than a few interesting ideas at play here. Again, the deep dive into certain characters is nice, but when everything does sort of feel like a rip-off, even though it plays on that, it just comes across as too much. So before I give you guys my score, thanks so much for being here, but I want to know, which side of the fence do you fall on? My score is a 50%. If you want to support this review, be sure to drop your thumbs up down below, and please be in that comment section. I want to know what people think about this show. Am I wrong? Do you love it? Is it the best show of the year? Whatever you guys think, this is your space and place to talk about it. You're the best. Thanks again. I'll see you soon.